I figure as much, seeing that I'm on a roll, why don't I just crank out another video? So, this video will be my thoughts about an op-ed called No, Feminism is Not About Choice by Megan Tyler, published on this site called The Conversation, and a response of sorts to Anita Sarkeesian in regards to her speech and views regarding choice feminism. Choice feminism. That very term makes my ass itch, mainly because of how unnuanced it is and how it readily dismisses the autonomy and agency and experiences of other women, as well as just follow the white mainstream feminism trend of dictating to others how their feminist praxis should go, and what feminism as a movement and an ideology should be. And personally, I'm just sick of it. I'm pretty fucking sick of it. Women are not a monolithic group, and feminism is not a monolithic movement, nor should it be. And I'm finding it sad to see Anita Sarkeesian, who's garnered so much support via her tropes versus women in gaming, and you know, going to conferences and speaking and things like that, to see her garner so much support and gain a platform, that she would use this newfound position and privilege along with white privilege to just adapt to white feminism's MO of dictating what is and isn't feminism, while using the work of non-white feminists. So anyway, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what was said in Megan Tyler's article. Now, me personally, I had no idea that Vogue even put out a video or some sort of ad. I'm not the target demographic for Vogue magazine, and since there's hardly any women who look like me within its pages, I don't give that company my time or my money. And that's one of the problems that continually comes up with mainstream feminism, aka white feminism. It only cares about white cis women and only addresses the issues of white cis women, while using the feminist work of women of color, most times black women, for their own ends. And while I do agree that mainstream media has always been problematic when it comes to perpetuating the idea of gender and beauty standards being compulsory, mainstream media can still be utilized for empowerment. If women want to be femme and slim, they should be able to do that. If women want to be femme and thick, they should be able to do that. You know, if they want to wear makeup or don't want to wear makeup, if you want to be femme, if you want to be soft butch or hard butch or BOI, you know, etc. Whatever. These are all arbitrary choices, not societal dictates. One of feminism's goals under eradicating sexist oppression is the cessation of pushing a group of arbitrary behaviors, standards, and concepts as mandatory for acceptance by society. As for the bit about that liberal Democrat who received a lap dance in a strip club, I don't see what the problem is with that. Stripping is a job. If you take issue with the how, because I know that, you know, there are a lot of cases of women who do sex work, that they're trafficked into that, then address human trafficking, you know, but don't assume that all women who are stripping and who do sex work are without agency and never made the choice, and that women don't make the choice to do sex work, because that's not only fallacious, it taints the movement against human trafficking, because certain feminists continue to conflate human trafficking with sex work. To me, that's no better than what conservatives do. You disguise what's essentially your own personal morality crusade against things that you don't like, um, as a movement to help people. The same thing with the bit about Playboy. Both men and women are consumers of pornography. That's something that we can all enjoy and partake in with, while addressing the issues within pornography. Destroy destroy the narrative that looking and behaving a certain way is obligatory. That is the thing that I think really needs to be addressed and discussed. And like, that's the main goal. If you have a problem with a certain narrative, then destroy the narrative. You don't have to um, destroy the establishment necessarily. The establishment, there's nothing wrong with the establishment or the industry necessarily. It's the people within the establishment or the industry who, it's their personal beliefs, it's their, personal dictates that make a certain industry problematic. Get those people out of there. Change the narrative about a certain industry or an establishment. Now, I have my gripes with liberal feminism, mostly because of the idea that equality attained via legal and legislative means will lead to equality and social change overall, which, as we've seen with racism, especially with the events happening in Baltimore, that hasn't happened. And it hasn't been the case for like 60 years. And while I do believe that caring for the collective good, what good are we to each other and, to other people, if we're still broken as an individual? What good are we to others if we can't even get our own house in order? The mainstream feminist movement has a lot of dirty laundry to clean before it can truly be of service to all women, you know. It's up to us to tackle that said unequal conditions in which we live, instead of just dictating to feminists what is and isn't feminism, or, what isn't feminist enough. And while it is true that our choices are limited, to just cast them off and dismiss them is a very privileged mindset to have, especially when you take into account that for non-white women, making certain choices in the face of a Western cis heteronormative patriarchal society and its anti-Black narrative, are revolutionary and empowering. If you take issue with the narrative of like child rearing as just women's work, then deconstruct it, because we know that's not true. There are stay-at-home moms, there are stay-at-home moms, and there are stay-at-home dads. Deconstruct the narrative that taking care of children is only women's work. In that effect, don't judge women who have children that and they're the non-custodial parent. Don't get your panties in a bunch when you hear about guys who are babysitters and guys who work at daycare centers. Attack that narrative from both sides. You don't do that by attacking women who choose to be stay-at-home mothers. By doing that, you thoroughly dismiss that historically women of color have never had the luxury of being able to stay at home with their own children. We have always had to work to sustain housing and to feed our families, most often by being domestics and wet nurses to white people's children. while being seen by white supremacy as unfit mothers because for not being with our own children. And while being called selfish because you choose to be childless isn't right, it's not right at all. Neither is bearing the weight of the bad mother stereotype because you're poor and you have to support your family. As women, we can recognize the choices we have while fighting against, the wage gap and gender issues and lack of representation in government and misogyny. These things are not mutually exclusive. Claiming that recognizing and utilizing the choices that we do have mean that we cannot hold our patriarchal society and culture responsible for perpetuating the status quo is fucking ridiculous. Black women owning their bodies and sexuality, choosing to be stay-at-home mothers, trans women choosing to express their gender however they choose. I mean, hell, all women, period, and men choosing to express their gender as they choose. These are all choices that challenge the status quo. And to argue otherwise shows the lack of nuance and narrow-mindedness of one's feminist praxis. The whole of this article is nothing more than a giant morality crusade against things that one particular feminist doesn't like, like porn and sex work and marriage. And the problem is that, yes, there are feminists who do criticize certain industries by criticizing women who partake in them. You can criticize porn without postulating that all women in the porn business are agency-lacking sex objects. You can critique the way strippers and other sex workers are treated by male customers without postulating that all sex workers are trafficking victims. That's why when white feminism critiqued Beyonce and Rihanna and Michelle Obama through a feminist lens, black feminists clap back hard at them. The critiques that mainstream feminism, white feminism, write and express are often without nuance and actually knowing shit. Freedom starts with the self, the individual. And only when the individual is strong enough can they move on to care about the collective. You can't have a collective without individuals, last I checked. And you can acknowledge the choices that we do have while continuing to work towards equality. So I'm finding it really ironic and hypocritical for Megan and Anita to spout, oh, feminism is for the equality of all women, while demeaning and dismissing the realities of other women. It's hypocritical for Anita to borrow feminist works from the likes of, Bell Hooks and Kimberly Crenshaw and, other black feminists. And then, once she gets a big enough platform, dictate to all feminists what is and isn't feminist enough.